So this one explores how organizations can transform raw operational data into actionable insights, ensuring AI doesn't just automate and optimize, but drives alignment and performance across the enterprise. Joining us for this discussion are three leaders at the intersection of AI, cloud, and manufacturing: Suraj Pai, Venkat Gumatam, and William Van Buskirk. Oh my gosh, sorry. My own colleague, William Van Buskirk, yes, from Tulip.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. Excited to be here with my industry colleagues. We're going to kick things off. I know we got introduced here. I'm happy to be here today. Suraj Pai, principal at ZS, a little over 2 decades in digital and AI for life sciences. I'd say about 80% of the time was focused on life sciences. I've been working in other industries as well, but I would love for my industry colleagues here to introduce themselves as well.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Hope you're enjoying the conference here today. Awesome. So Venkat Gumatham, I'm a partner solutions architect at Amazon Web Services. I work very closely with ZS. In my role, actually, I wear many hats, right? I'm an evangelist, I'm a technologist, I'm a strategist. So we really want to, align our partners like ZS with AWS strategy and vision. And our strategy and vision comes from customers like you, right? So we really are, in a way, making sure that our partners are catering to your vision. So that is me. Passing the baton to William.
Sounds great. Hi, everyone. I'm William Van Buskirk. I lead our U.S. alliances at Tulip. But for really the past decade or so, I've worked to really connect the value in manufacturing to the use case of what to do, to the how of specifically what's the architecture. So that's been my core focus kind of past 9 years.
All right, well, thank you both. It's going to be an exciting session. We're going to go over the agenda real quick. I know it's a short session, but we wanted to sort of focus on the need for data contextualization, especially in how OT and IT are coming together today, especially with the focus on Agentic AI and how important it is to get that right. We have a few slides here to talk about the architecture, especially from the AWS lens, the Industrial Data Fabric, so some exciting topics there. And then we'll end with a few use cases on how all comes together and how you can leverage Agentic AI on top of data contextualization to sort of realize some of these shop floor use cases. Familiar slide, I'm sure all of us in this room have seen some version of this at some point. Of course, at the very right-hand side of the slide, you see over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of AI and automation coming into play, especially with integrating shop floor data systems to actually not just vertically within the plant, but to the rest of the enterprise. Today's focus is really going to be on data readiness and data contextualization and how that enables your AI journey and some practical use cases around how that comes to life. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague here, Venkat. He's going to talk a little bit about the manufacturing data flywheel.
Awesome. So in essence, manufacturing a data flywheel is a concept where you're basically reinforcing your processes through the cyclic nature of the data. Basically, you're collecting the data from your operations, and then you are feeding the data into analyzing it and finding insights that would improve your processes, your products, your operations. And then you make those changes, right? And then you're getting new data now so that you can further optimize on your operations. And that is, generally speaking, what the data flywheel is. And when you look into this diagram, you'll see those circles within different domains. And of course, there are bigger circles across the board. In an essence, basically what is happening here is you are optimizing within certain factory lines, right, production lines, but you're also optimizing across the board as well. So this is where you need data coming from all the different systems coming together to give you those insights, really. And this is where AWS came together and created a solution called Industrial Data Fabric. It is more, I'll call it as a reference, it's a reference solutions architecture. This is, we basically created a framework where you can get all the data from all these different systems and analyze it and store it in a proper data stores. That's extremely important in a certain manner, and then find insights through that and contextualize the data and so on and so forth. So that is really what the manufacturing data flywheel is all about, and that is where industrial data. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on the previous page, I mean, let's say the quiet part out loud, right? This is a manufacturing conference, but you can't transform a company in silos of manufacturing, engineering, and supply chain. And I think this is a tech-focused workshop. This is a tech discussion, but like these connection points have to happen across your people, who's talking to who, your processes, how does stuff get done in your company, and then also the tech, obviously. But I had a number of customers I was in consulting. They'd say things like, hey, I know when the machine's running. I don't know what it should be running. I don't know when we change from V1 to V2 in engineering. I don't know what my customers are struggling with. So, yeah, this same view is very important, I think, across people, process, and tech. So, agree.
Really good insight, William. I think it depends on the question that you're asking. Hey, is my equipment working as it's supposed to? Starting from there, hey, is my production line working as efficient as it should be? Or even it's a much higher question. Hey, as a whole manufacturing organization, are we working efficiently? Are all those dots connecting together, right? From supply chain to your factory floor to your even engineering product. I think everything revolves and everything is connected in some form or fashion. We need to bring all of the data together. Like William said, even though it's a tech session, I think data plays a central and very essential role going forward. Yeah, so I think you all might have seen this, ISA 95 operation pyramid, right? Back in the day, it probably served the purpose, but it's no more. So we need to break the silos. A lot of organizations, I was hearing the previous session, we're all in this transition phase, right? So we're breaking those silos. Right now, I see most of our customers have their data coming together in the IT, but also data coming from the factory floors through the sensors and through various different systems. But it is still not as integrated as you can see, right? IT data and OT data is all separate. We need to make sure that it's all come together. For most of us, the desired state is something that looks like on the very right-hand side of the deck here, where all of these different systems and all the data is coming together from all these different systems, and they all take actions accordingly with a centralized context. So, because all of these different things are dependent, right? So, how you are doing scheduling of your resources, to how you are optimizing your production lines, and how you're tuning your equipment. Everything is related in some form of fashion. So, we need to bring all of the data together. And of course, I have some keywords there. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. They're like agentic and whatnot. So really, the essence of Industrial Data Fabric is to bring all the data together and also contextualize in such a way that you can build more smarter systems going forward. I think we automated a lot of things in Industry 4.0. Mm-hmm. Industry 5.0 is where we envision a future where decisions will be made by AI agents, and human will be in the loop to validate such decisions and perhaps influence other decisions by just talking to these systems. I think I have to say that like we are entering into Iron Man type of a world going forward, mm-hmm. where we are talking to the systems and the systems will be talking to us, and there is a really natural machine-human collaboration there. And that is the future that we are envisioning, right, Suraj? And in order to get there, data is extremely essential. These agents don't work well or nor will give you the right information or make better decisions, that, just like humans, without the proper data. So I think that is why data is so essential.
Absolutely. Yeah, Venkat, thanks for that. And maybe double click on that. What does that mean? Data is essential, right? Where we look at, a lot of these autonomous systems that are coming into life right now. Their agents coming into play. AI does only as good as its data, right? And it's not just the data. It goes beyond just the data. It goes into data context, right? Context is king. So if you look on the left-hand side of the slide, a lot of the elements that AWS's Industrial Data Fabric brings together. You have a variety of heterogeneous systems on the shop floor. All kinds of data acquisition strategies and architecture are deployed as part of Industry 4.0. But we get into Industry 5.0 with the advent of AI and agents. What does that really mean for them to be able to be effective and do and augment humans on the shop floor? What does that landscape look like? It really comes down to how you contextualize data, right? And it is not easy to do, but at the same time, it is a necessary step for you to be able to leverage, AI and agentic AI in essence. So, double clicking on that right-hand part of the slide, just going a little bit more deep into what context really means. We've seen from our standpoint, working with several customers, when it comes to data contextualization, it's often, unfortunately, siloed in its own right? There's a lot of focus maybe on data acquisition on the shop floor and contextualization, at the point of capture, right? And if you look on that big, right-hand part of the slide, you see there's human context, right? Not every shop floor is going to have every single aspect of it digitized. You have some devices that are IoT ready, some may not be, some might be sensorized, some may not be. You still have humans in the loop that are capturing data and capturing elements of the manufacturing process, right? That's one part of the context, and it's an important part that needs to be captured. But then we think about context maturity as you move up ISA 95 and into the enterprise, it starts to incrementally mature, right? You have everything from the asset context, right? Your equipment, your line, your site, and then you get into the process context, right? What kind of unit operations am I working on, right? What are some of the set points, the limits, and other aspects of the process relevant to this unit operation? And then you get into higher order context with the product itself, right? Starting with the batch, and then different parts of the life cycle for the product. And then when you get to the very top, you have cross-functional context. How does this blend in with my CMC processes? How does it blend in with my quality processes? What does it look like across the value chain from inception to launch, right? That's the kind of context that's important for you to be able to take an AI or an agentic AI capability and layer it on top, right? So we see a lot of this coming to life in parts. It's important to think of the entire contextualization maturity. And at the end of the day, if you base all of this on a foundational layer of ontologies, right? You have structured naming conventions, you have relationships between entities. All of that is such important context to truly unlock cross-functional value, right? And that's where companies are going today. And from what we see, it's not an easy journey. There are parts of it that are enabled well, right? There's a lot that AWS does to sort of enable it. There are a lot of apps that Tulip offers that infuse that context, right? But there has to be a way to bring it all together at the top, right? And that's the key message here. Focus on ontologies. Think of the whole maturity curve, if you will, of data contextualization, and not just focus on maybe the equipment or the unit op and just go beyond, right?
That's a very good point, Suraj. Ontologies, right, and context, and this is very important. So the way we can transform into smart manufacturing is essentially to get that context. When we're talking about these agents, like I said, they will not work without proper data. When I say proper data, an agent should know, hey, what is this data about, right? What is the context behind it? When did it happen? why it's happening, and in what context. Depending on the question that you're asking, or depending on the scenario that agent is running, it requires that context. And like Suraj mentioned, the context comes in many different flavors. It's not just the metadata, right? It is also correlating the data across multiple systems. And how do you represent that data with the context, right? Perhaps a knowledge graph, right? Perhaps a different way to put it, like like metadata, like how we used to. That also plays a great role, asset modeling. So all of these this information, when we need to put that into a much better contextualized fashion. And for that, you need to choose the right storage. Is that a graph storage versus an S3? So you cannot, I think a lot of people think, I'll just dump all the data coming through into a big S3 bucket, and then I'll throw an agent on top of it. Somehow it magically works. Doesn't. Right? So you need to make sure that data is structured, analyzed and structured, and make it ready for agents, make it ready for AI. And that is extremely important. And it is not a very easy job, Suraj. It's extremely difficult because context depends on the viewpoint that you're looking at and the problem you're trying to solve. Context changes across the board. And it is extremely difficult to create contextualized data. And that is where partners like ZS will come into the picture, really, because you need experience, right? And that is where Tulip will come into picture, because I need the data, and you need to be on the next generation, born in the cloud systems, so that you are not only flexible, creating your frontline operations, but also you can easily ingest the data into and create contextualized data. So it's a fusion I'm seeing here.
Absolutely, absolutely. William, did you have a comment there?
Just simply put, who likes their data organized? Show of hands, right? Who also hates rigid bureaucratic standards? So let's be real here. Let's keep it simple. Like ISA 95, ISA 88, they're great. A little too rigid. No data model, Wild West, a little dangerous. And there's this tension in each company, which is like, how can I keep things organized, but flexible enough to meet my own operation? And there's some tension there, because that's not a problem I can solve. I can't give you ISA 96 and say, here's the solution. It's a bit of each company has their own challenge to say, what am I going to take out of a common data model? What am I going to take out of Tulip's common data model to use and leverage? And then what do I have to be a bit more flexible with? I guess another point of focus is that this is important. Why? Well, it's because you look at something like quality management. That used to be, hey, buy QMS and you're done. Now it's, well, quality management. That involves data from Tulip. That involves data from a quality system. That involves data from your ERP. And now you have to trace this thread all the way through these systems to understand why the heck am I making bad parts? And that's a hard problem to solve. So I think, simply put, like, the problems have gotten harder and the data's gotten messier. So that's why we're talking about what we're talking about.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we have just a couple more slides, and expanding on the comments that William just made. We've made references to AI and agentic AI, and sometimes they're conflated. People throw in LLMs and generative AI in there. But essentially, just taking a step back and really focusing what agentic AI can do, right? And that's the operative word. What can it do, right? A lot of AI up until now has been focused on generating insights, right? Which is fantastic. But now we're getting to an age where there's actual agents or agentic AI that can help you do, right? It's not just about insights, it's about doing and executing. But the nature of that execution, the model, the operating model, the optimized design there really is about augmenting humans, right? Because of the nature of agents, the access to the context they have, the kind of decisions they can make, at the end of the day, there's got to be a deliberate, intentful design with human in the loop. And we've seen a lot of success in reimagining processes, right? With the human in the center, optimized for them to be able to interact. Going back to the Iron Man analogy, right? A lot of the times, especially with folks in the room, I'm sure you've experienced this, you do a lot of these massive technology implementations, be it ERP, be it shop floor systems. You have processes that are defined, then they're broken down. You have L1, L2, L3 processes. You're optimized either for an SAP or an Oracle or what have you, right? Mm-hmm. But that kind of design doesn't lend itself well for agentic thinking because the whole thing was designed around optimizing for systems. But now you're optimizing for human in the center, right? Human in the loop. When you do that, you really have to reimagine your process, right? And that's key as a precursor to being able to leverage your agents on top of the data, the contextualized data that we just talked about, right? So this is, we talked about ontologies, we talked about, accelerators that can help you with that journey. This is somewhere, the three of us have converged on, right, with AWS and Tulip. Like, what does that look like? What are some of these accelerators that you can leverage to accelerate your data contextualization journey, right? So we do a lot of work, for those of you who are from the life sciences industry, for instance, we do a lot of work in the industry to build out, a common set of ontologies. Going back to William's point about IC 95, 88, lot of good things to borrow there, but it's not the only holy grail, especially as you look for a more connected data world of data today. And being able to leverage some of these accelerators out of the box becomes key because that accelerates your journey with Tulip, that accelerates your analytics and AI journey with AWS, and it just allows you to sort of unlock that value faster and sooner, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have, Tulip has a library of starting point applications, but what I love personally, being in partnerships and alliances is when partners like ZS, they build on top of that. So now, not only do we have an EBR or a logbook template on the library, but we also have a more opinionated and a more fleshed out example from ZS of, hey, here's ZS's perspective on EBR and logbooks with a lot of that, data contextualization and thinking in place.
Absolutely. Well, wow, I think we're at time.
Yes.
Any questions?
Any questions? Yeah, there's one.
I have a question on the. I really appreciate this topic, so thanks for this session. As we talk about ISA 95, 88, and moving to the modern architecture, I think a conflict point I see a lot is cybersecurity and industrial network versus enterprise network. Do you guys have any insights on best practices on how to structure that, let's call it modern architecture, while appeasing the cybersecurity requirements?
Yeah, I can give you a couple of responses to that. I'm sure there's several perspectives here from William and Venkat as well. So coming from life sciences, it's a big deal, right? We work with two kinds of customers. One of them, they're very focused on novel therapeutics, and they want to have everything contained at the edge, right? So their entire data strategy and analytics and AI strategy is decentralized. So we want to have very specific NIST-based cybersecurity sort of architectures at the edge. You have data at the edge, you have processing at the edge, you have AI and even agentic AI with MCPs deployed at the edge. But we also have customers that are large pharma companies that have a variety of products. And that's where it gets really interesting because you got to take not just your OT cybersecurity, but you got to mesh it with IT cybersecurity. And traditionally, those two have not converged. But there's a lot of great stuff that's happening, even with partners that you don't see here. A lot of automation companies are looking at that more closely. So if you work with some of those vendors, I would ask about what that converged IT-OT cybersecurity model looks like. There's a lot of good stuff out there today that's in practice.
Yeah, I guess if you go back to the pyramid slide, we all love pyramid slides. But if you go back to the pyramid slide, look, like I think there's one end of the spectrum is nothing talks to nothing. The other end of the spectrum is everything talks to everything, potentially, unsecurely, which is a concern. So I think my advice to an operations persona is don't come in guns blazing to IT and say, we want to connect these systems. Like the more you can drive a use case discussion with IT, they can get a bit more creative. The more you can say, we want to solve this problem, now you're driving out a use case as opposed to, hey, I really need all my PLCs to access the public internet. You can really drive out a use case. And I'd say like it's a multi-partner approach. It's not just buy one tool and hope it works. It's I mean, that's the reason our partner pavilion is so busy this year. Security on the OT side requires a number of partners.
Yeah, just to add to that, right? So it really depends, like William mentioned, is the use case, right? What are you trying to solve? I think you work backwards from that. And there's certain data that's generated can be sent to the cloud, right? But you may need to scrub it. So I think those discussions will come. And like Suraj mentioned, you can also have edge LLMs now, right? So there are SLMs that you can run at the edge. It's not necessary that you need to put everything into the cloud. But at the same time, you want to put some information into the cloud, as per your cybersecurity policies. But I think the takeaway is to start with the use case that you're trying to solve, work backwards from that one, and figure out like how what data needs to go where and how you need to align that posture.
Do we have any other questions?
More short question. All right. Well, thank you all for presenting. And if you have any questions for the folks up here, feel free to find them after. And we'll move on to the next one.